Welcome back, everybody. I'm Edwin.
And I'm Joseph.
And this is
Edwin and Joseph Talks. So, this week coming up, or if we get it on the right day, it should be Halloween. I'm going to talk about kind of the origin of Halloween. I'm not going to get into the history per se, like all the details, but a little bit of a backstory. And hopefully it's enough to make you guys maybe kind of research it a little bit further and really understand what and why and how basically we have Halloween now. Before I start, is there anything that you know about Halloween? Like,
as far as like the story behind it, not really actually. I mean, I know it's like most holidays where it's like pagan based or whatever, and then you got the just like the costumes and stuff, but I don't know how far back it dates or anything like that.
Well, one thing I found out was it has a lot of kind of my heritage. It has to do a lot with Halloween. I didn't realize that. They report back that some of the first beginnings had to do with the Celts.
Okay.
And this is hundreds of years ago. And basically, there was one night, it was held October 31st-ish, where they would have bonfires, and they would stay at these bonfires all night because there were two things. It was their winter coming in, so they were celebrating like the harvest, and also they celebrated the dead, not only because that was custom, but they believed that at that night the veil between their other world was the thinnest, and that those souls and beings could cross over in our world or vice versa. So they wouldn't let nobody embark out. You had to pretty much kind of stay there. They don't know if they use any type of ritual mask or anything like that. The reason why I'm not bringing up the name on it is because if you look at the word itself, it's pronounced way different than what you would think. It looks like Samhain, but it's
Samhain.
But it's no, they say it way different.
It's different.
Just do some research on it. You'll quickly find what I'm talking about. So later on, the Romans had another ritual, and it's at a different time, but they had a ritual where they would take milk and they would pour it on the graves, and they thought that basically that if they didn't do that they would come out of the graves.
Okay.
So that was a lot longer in time, and the reason why I'm not getting into a lot of these, because we could have a video that goes on for probably hours. So we're going to pass a while to where we get to the Roman Catholics. So they were taking a lot of the pagan European traditions. Mm-hmm. And at that time, that's when they were trying to stop what the pagans were kind of doing. And how they were doing it is they would take their rituals and turn them into a Christian holiday. A lot like Christmas, Easter, all those. They kept a lot of the kind of same things. Now it was in May, a holiday called All Saints Day. They took that and put it in November, right after Halloween. And they called that day All Hallows Day. Well, the night before was
Halloween.
All Hallows Eve.
Well,
there was an Irish word that took that, and it was All Hallows Eve. It was something, combined them, and that's how we got what we call Halloween now. Again, research this because we're talking about hundreds of years of just different things. So that's kind of how we got the term of that. Now, back then, it was not Halloween like we know it today, of course.
Yeah, the parties and the trick-or-treating and stuff.
There were it wasn't trick or treating, but they would have people would go around and ask for soul cakes, and it was like a spice cake with raisins. And what it was is those people would get a cake, and then they would go pray for the souls to be released from purgatory to heaven or hell.
Gotcha.
Um, so that transitioned. There's a lot of transitions, a lot of time passing. Now in Ireland, we have basically now current day jack o' lanterns. How that happened was there was a story that they call. There's many names, Stinky Jack, but they call him Jack of the Lantern. And I'm not going to get into the whole story, but he tricked Satan a couple times. And the last time he tricked Satan into basically he can never enter hell. Well, because of all his sins, when he died, he couldn't get into heaven. So when he went down to hell, Satan's like, hey, sorry.
You're out of luck,
You
dude.
can't get into here. But Satan gave him a coal out of basically the burning river, gave him a coal, and back then they didn't have jack-o'-lanterns out of pumpkins, they had turnips. So they had the original kind of jack-o'-lantern was a turnip, and the story is he put it in there and he used that as his lantern, forever walking Ireland.
That's actually a pretty dope.
Yeah, actually, the story is really cool. Look it up. Jack of Lantern, Stinky Jack. There's a bunch of them.
I knew a guy named Stinky Jack one time.
Yeah, it's just about a drunk Irish dude that basically tricked Satan a few times, and yeah, it's a cool story. Look it up. So basically, the Irish kids would make jack-o'-lanterns, but they were out of turnips. So that's kind of how the jack-o'-lantern started. Now, the look of them, if you take a jack-o'-lantern, you have kind of the nose that has the triangle.
The triangle cut out.
And everything. And if you take a skull, it kind of reveals, because if you take our skull, it's kind of a triangle shape. You know what I mean? And then the mouth and stuff, and you kind of get a skull type resemblance in the jack-o'-lantern. And through this, we're going to go to. I'm going to skip the whole area because we kind of talk about the souls, Souls Day and all that. The Renaissance and Victoria area and Dark Ages kind of had their own with that, but that's where you started getting the skeletons, the myths of vampires and stuff was back then.
Right on.
Now, witches started really picking up around basically Salem witch trials and stuff. So that's how that kind of got introduced into Halloween. Now, a lot of the Puritans that moved to America tried to stop Halloween, but there's some people that were embraced it. And even in Canada had one of the very first Halloween nights where there was a parade and stuff like that.
Like an actual celebration too.
Yeah, and I want to say, I could be wrong on this, it was about 1910. Now, how we know Halloween started really picking up, trick-or-treating, if I remember right, it was started around 1920s.
Okay.
Now 1910 to 1920s. Now by the 30s, they called it Mischief Night. And it's where we get the mischief of Halloween, of kids
egging houses, toilet paper.
Yeah. But in the 30s, especially in 1933, it got so bad because they were in the Depression, Great Depression then, where kids were breaking windows, lighting buildings on fire, stuff like that. It was getting so bad that government, school, all these places, even from Canada here, were like, how can we change this? Well, a lady had wrote and published an article in the newspapers saying how she bribed all the kids with the candy.
to stop like
Yeah, her house didn't get messed with. Nobody broke anything. Nobody did anything. So that kind of progressed to kind of how we have our modern day
trick or
trick or
treating with
treat.
candy and stuff.
Now, the term trick or treat really became popular in the 70s. And one of the major things that sprouted all that was, believe it or not, Peanuts.
Peanuts?
Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown.
I thought you meant like peanuts, but
No,
right.
The cartoon. Hollywood started getting into it, and by then, the 50s started with like the paper costumes.
Yeah, they actually look kind of creepy, dude. Have you seen some of the older costumes?
But before then, everybody just kind of made their own costumes, and those look creepy too because, you know, the white ghost sheet was basically taken from the thought of burial sheets. That's where they got that. So every little thing that we kind of see, you know, the white ghost sheets and stuff like that, there was meaning behind it at one time. Yeah. So in the 70s, what we really know of Halloween is what started to take off. And then, you know, in 78, you have the movie Halloween.
Yeah.
And the reason why that movie was all started was to bring more adults into Halloween. The guy that made it, he loved Halloween. He loved trick-or-treating. He loved every aspect, you know, the haunted houses and stuff like that. But he had heard somebody say, there's nothing Halloween for adult-wise. And that's when he came up with
the movie
Michael
idea.
Myers and Halloween.
Right on.
And of course, you know, that evolved, and now Halloween, as we know it, is more than just about kids. Look how much adult-centered things there is about Halloween. You know,
everything from horror movies, parties.
Yeah, you know, costumes now. If you look at some of the costumes for the women, they're almost all sexualized.
Yeah.
Whether your thoughts are, you know, good or bad on it, you know, it's the one day that somebody can really just.
You can be a kid just for a day.
You can be, you know, anybody you want to be that day. You can go back to when you were a kid. You know, you can go to a party and all that. But yeah, I just thought it would be kind of cool to look at some of the origins of Halloween, you know, where some of the symbolic symbols have came from. It was funny, though, before, if you were to look at some of the stuff in the 30s, that's when the stuff with, like, witches and stuff changed. Because before then, you had the old haggard, nasty witch.
Yeah.
And then they started to kind of beautify him and make him sexier. Like, you'll start to notice from the 40s to 50s how witches looked different.
As far as costumes and stuff, or just in general?
Costumes and just how they...
Just how they look in general?
Yeah. And that's just kind of society. You know, we went from the Depression to, like, the 50s where a lot more glamorous, you know, stuff like that.
Hollywood kind of took up on
it. So, yeah, that's kind of the origins of Halloween. I could have made this a lot longer. Is there any questions you got? I mean...
No, I mean, I did learn a lot, though. You threw in some stuff that I actually didn't even realize about Halloween and how it got started and stuff, like the Jack-o'-lanterns things. That was actually a pretty cool story. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, it's.
I knew when it first started, they used other stuff besides pumpkins. Yeah. I just didn't know like the whole origin to it.
And there's a lot more stuff. Halloween really takes its roots from a lot of different areas, a lot of different influences. You know, it makes me laugh because I knew some Christian friends that they we're not going to celebrate Halloween
Devil's
and blah blah
birthday and
blah.
all that.
Yeah, and there, when you look at the history of it, there's a lot of Christianity stuff that's in it, and I'm just like, you guys might want to do more research on, you know, kind of what they're talking about and stuff.
A lot of holidays were like pagan based, and then
Yeah.
everybody just kind of threw their own thing in there, and that's how we have the holidays that are here, whether it's religious or not. You know,
Yeah.
that's how we have the holidays that are now.
And even to this day, it still is kind of the spookiest day of the year.
Yeah.
You know, it's a holiday that brings out, you know, I don't want to say the demons of people, but the other side of people that, you know,
That
they
you
get
can't be the rest of the year.
Yeah.
You get to have fun that year. And
yeah. So it's a holiday. I love Halloween. I'm not one of those people that are against it. It's a holiday that, you know, really look at the history of it, because it's quite interesting, taking all the different cultures and the way that it's ended up now. Because if you were to take somebody that, say they come from another planet, and you try to explain Halloween to them, they'll probably think that you're insane.
probably.
It's just something that we
Unless they
understand,
got like
you
a
know.
more dope version of it than we do.
Well, yeah, you know, they might have something for it, but
Space Halloween would be dope.
they would be like, what are you guys doing? Like, you run around in costumes and ask for candy. Like, but it all has a purpose somewhere of where, you know, the original treats were to help souls get to the next life, or out of purgatory, or the one day that the other world and is at the thinnest, and, you know, you want to respect them at the same time, not get sucked into that place and never come back to Earth, you know, stuff like that. So this was a cool one for me because I like history stuff, you know.
Halloween's always cool to talk about. It's fun.
Yeah, Halloween's fun, and research it some more, everybody. Other holidays, if you would like to see more stuff like this, I'm sure we'll do some other ones.
Since you covered Halloween this month, I think next month I'll go ahead and cover Dia de los Muertos.
That'd be cool, yeah.
For the Spanish side.
Because that one is more your culture.
It is.
Where I found out Halloween had a lot of Irish influence.
Which I didn't know either.
I honestly, I kind of knew the histories of Halloween, but I didn't know it. There's probably 5 different points that had a lot of just Irish
parts in it.
And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And with that, we're going to let you guys go. Like, comment, subscribe.
If you know something he didn't cover, let us know. Maybe there's some more information.
Yeah, comment it. There's a lot of stuff I didn't cover in there, or different holiday stuff like that I didn't say just because it turned into a long video. And
but we thank you for stopping by, and we'll see you Friday.